Welcome to the premiere edition of Brothers Talking, a monthly program that will bring a cross-generational group of black men together, creating a safe and brave space for honest, fearless discussion about the issues and challenges and fears faced by black men. The goal of Brothers Talking is to amplify and explore the lived experiences of black men, the pain, joy, success, failure, and the resulting opportunities for growth and self-discovery. Let me introduce you to the brothers fearless enough to take this journey over the next 10 months. Welcome, brothers.
Hey,
Thank you.
Yeah. I contradicted myself in my intro. I said we're gonna have a fearless conversation about our fears, right?
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
I wanna start there. We're gonna get some intros together, but I wanna just deal with the fact that it's a difficult time to have public conversations about personal, honest things, right? We're in a moment where there are fears. All of y'all got platforms, y'all leaders in y'all respective work, y'all got things to lose, right? And so I'm aware immediately of the fear of saying the wrong thing in the wrong way when cameras are around, right? I want to talk about that just real quick before we get into intros. What are some of the things that we can do to make sure we're having an honest conversation while also protecting the safety and the integrity and also making sure
one of the things that we need to do is stop being afraid to talk to black men. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Why we having problems.
You mean like the young man that's walking around just not being afraid
Well,
to talk
first of
to
all,
them?
right, because it's generational.
Yeah, I got you. Anybody else have fears of having the camera on? Y'all worried about
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think about this a lot. I mean, my day-to-day work, I'm deeply entrenched in the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism, and all of that. And the people who are really at the front of the wave of that work, increasingly, I'm of the belief that it's a hostile environment.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a very hostile environment. It's a very purist culture. There's very little invitation, and there's very little awareness of how to do conflict mediation versus demanding something different be the reality, knowing how to work with people along the way to make it a reality. And I'm also it's a little scary for me because I'm one of the few black men I know in my space specifically. In the city of Chicago, it's very isolating. And in many ways, I think as a black man, I'm seen as a man first. I'm seen as black maybe third or fourth. And because I'm also a CEO, I'm seen as especially a man because I have a leadership role. Even though it's in a company I built from the mud. So even just being here, just talking, chopping it up, knowing that this is also, this is an intimate, personal conversation with some brothers, but we're in an era where the question of men and masculinity is being hotly debated and not often including the men who may say that they have a masculinity. And it feels very dangerous to piece that apart publicly while explicitly centering just what we think. Because my day-to-day is definitely not centering what we think.
Much easier to just not say nothing.
Exactly. And that's,
stay quiet. That's y'all decided to, y'all here.
My hope is that we extend each other a lot of grace. We all represent different spaces, different generations, and in order to chart our own path and learn, we have to be willing to make mistakes, say things that may be a little rough, but if we give each other grace, we can create space for us to learn, right? So I think, particularly when you have intergenerational dialogue, people don't understand, so we got to listen to understand one another, right? So I'm hopeful that we can create that over this
I think
journey.
we can create that. I'm confident that we can get to that space. I'm also aware that there's Twitter fingers.
Comment sections.
Comment sections, right. And so I love having conversations with black men. This is my favorite thing to do. I love it. The thing I love about it is creating that safety where I can be like, no, let's just let your hair down. No judgment. Everything's fine. You ain't got to worry about it. But that would be a lie. I don't want to set y'all up to say that there's somebody waiting for you to say the wrong thing so that what you built from the ground up can get tore down just as quickly. Right. What makes y'all decide to still have the courage to speak out, to show up, to move forward, despite the dangerous terrain that we're in sort of the public opinion sphere?
I think for me, it's lean on faith, knowing that everything, each and every day, things I do is covered and protected. And so I'm being covered and protected, that I know that even if I make a mistake, there's somebody behind me that's still going to hold me up. And there's going to be people that hold me up as well, too.
That's nice,
The other thing is about being present and being vulnerable. It's sometimes okay not to be okay. Like, I was really tired today. I was like, well, do I really want to show up? But I need to still show up anyway, because for me, if I'm going to show up, that's going to be the difference in somebody seeing this and or connecting in a space that may have not been present if I didn't do so.
Sure.
And so sometimes you have to show up, sometimes in ways that may feel uncomfortable, but may be necessary, particularly in the ways that we're in our society today, where we're not given that space, as Daniel said, or even that vulnerability. Sometimes we're just going to have to do those more uncomfortable things, and that's the thing that sometimes could be the thing that could be the breakthrough and the thing that somebody needed at that particular moment, point in time. And so that's, for me, that's where I'm here today. That's why I'm trying to lean in a little bit more, but also being vulnerable too, because again, at the end of the day, if I've shown up and I've been vulnerable and present, doesn't matter if a Twitter or Threads or whoever says what they said, I can lean and feel comfortable and sleep well at night knowing that what I've said and what I've left is who I am, no matter what.
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think something that's important too for us to keep in mind is that we're all on a journey. And I think it's easy that whether it's a particular seat we sit in or a community we serve, it's really easy to look at our outcomes or what we've done and assume that we have it all together, right? And I think that that's what makes this such a vulnerable space, because, you said earlier that everyone in some way has something to lose. It's like, what are the cracks that I don't like people seeing when I'm doing a press conference or when I'm doing this or that? And this is that space where it's like, okay, what can I say? And even in the extension of grace, because I think it's important for people to see and recognize that it's okay not to have it all together. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to continuously, to continue being on a journey. And I think that making that commitment to the journey and not necessarily the outcome is where we'll see a lot of great work.
Do you feel like, I'll ask you this last question, we're going to do intros, that Black men have less wiggle room for the compassion of that journey?
Absolutely.
Oh, man. That's not even a question.
One of the things, going back to your original question, I believe that this space is important. One thing for me is I'm trying to overcome my fear of public speaking. So I'm finding opportunities, and opportunities are being presented to me to where I can overcome that fear and become better in speaking and in these type of environments. And I want to be able to show people that at the end of the day, I'm human. And being able to put myself on this network and just show like, this is who I am, I'm going to make mistakes. I think this will be able to bring opportunities to other people where they see like, okay, this man is stuttering on camera, or this man is doing this, or whatever the case may be. Just to realize we're all just human, and we're all just we're on a journey, just like you said earlier. We're on a journey.
What's even more powerful for me is that you might feel anxious, but don't present it right now. Right?
Not at all.
So you're not stuttering.
You look straight.
You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't know unless you said it. You know what I mean?
That's good
so
to
somebody
know.
might hear it and say, okay, I'm not the only one that feels it, but can still maintain enough composure and do it anyway.
Yeah, right now, like my voice wants to shake, but I'm swallowing it down. Like I got this. I got this.
No, you do that. Well, we have a beautiful array of Black men. I'm excited to go on this journey with y'all. In addition to unpacking a topic each month, this group of brothers has committed to setting a goal together. So the beauty of the series means we get to check in, right? We get to come back and say, hold each other accountable, reach for something, achieve a thing as a group. And so we want to speak to that. We want to set a goal and intention for the 10-month journey we're going to be on. And we asked y'all to think about it before we even came to the space, but if we can take a moment just to say that out loud, just to put that on the table, into the air. We're going to seal it together as a group. But I want this to be a thing that we can say, because of this group, we are better 10 months after than we were before we met. So I'm hoping that we can really find some things that can lead us towards and inspire other people to achieve a thing very meaningful and tangible. So I want to start with that. I want us to share a goal that y'all feel like y'all could make some headway in between now and 10 months from now. What is that? Would be next year for sure. Yeah. In the spring, we'll be in spring. It'll be good. It'll be spring.
Y'all peep the math on that?
We'll be right in.
We'll
be right in. I'm not. My PhD was not in math.
Gregorian calendar.
All the words.
Nobody else knew either.
So let's start. Who has a goal that they want to put on the table?
One of my main goals for myself, a personal goal that I really want to do. I'm always on the go. I have so many things I have on my plate because I'm just at this age where I have to be successful. And I noticed, you say that again?
You mind sharing your age?
How old are you? Oh, I'm 32.
Okay.
I'm 32. One of the I appreciate it. It's DNA. One of the things I really believe for me that has been very beneficial on my journey so far is meditation. So something I really want to accomplish more in my daily life is to meditate every day. And sometimes I get in the mood, I get home, I'm like, I ain't meditating, I'm tired. But those are the moments where I need to meditate the most. So if you all can hold me accountable to that, I just want to meditate every day for 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
15 minutes every day.
In the night or in the morning?
I notice I meditate better at night after I had a long day. But that's my goal. So, yeah.
Exactly.
I struggle with this because I'm batting between what I consider to be truly personal versus personal professional. My personal and professional life are very, very intertwined. I did that deliberately back in 2012 when I started. I was like, how do I become one? And now I'm trying to unravel them a little bit. But in thinking about what I actually want some brothers to support with, I'm like, is it me going to the gym 3 days a week, 3 workouts a week? You know, because I fell off with the pandemic.
Still look good though.
I'm blessed.
Yeah. Skinny jeans, literally.
You know what, man? I'm out of fashion. Man. The shorty's telling me, I got the skinny jeans. I look old, man. I'm like, whatever.
Skinny DNA. That was
Oh, skinny DNA.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, that's complicated.
I mean, it's 220 pounds right here. But I think the thing that's really on my heart in terms of my goal is actually, I said this a little bit in my intro, man. I can't understate how rare it is to find black men in my space who are specifically doing this work at a high level, who are intersectional, who are liberatory minded, who are empowered, and who have a strong, powerful reputation. It's very, very rare, very rare. And at the same time, because I get to see all of these, I get to see the way organizations fall apart culturally, because I do a lot of cultural audits. I do a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion assessments, anti-racism strategies, and these things. So I get to go behind the scenes, talk to every single person in the company, get all the little survey data, get them in the focus groups, hear what they are afraid to say to their bosses. And now we're in a space now where there are a lot of groups, employee resource groups, business resource groups, DEI affinity groups, these sorts of things that are popping up. There's nothing for men. There's nothing specifically for men. There's nothing, and I'm watching, because I see all the data, and because I'm with them in the focus groups, and because I get the one-on-ones, I know they're breaking. And we're not in an environment where I think, one, the visibility of men, I don't think most people know what it looks like when men break. And so I don't think that people can see it when it happens professionally or personally, and we become such great masters. I also am a great master of hiding my breakage. I want to build that space in my sector. I want to build a program specifically for men in the professional space. Similar
the first
to
time you said build something.
build a actual program. It is an actual program. I already got the write-up. I'm already talking to my first guy in the morning. Got a meeting with him at 8 a.m. And I'm looking to build a space for about 20, specifically professional men in white-collar jobs who are showing up for everybody, and there's nobody showing up for them.
I love it.
It's gonna take me some time though. That's why I said it's a good 10-month journey.
I love it.
Yeah.
My brothers, y'all got a goal?
Something I am really interested in doing, and I've been trying to do it for years, is I would like to write and produce a play. And this is probably my first time being around so many men at once. And I'm usually pretty intentional about not being around men because of just my own experiences. And so
I'm sorry, I'm gonna derail you real quick. I'm so sorry. You're the only person that introduced your pronouns.
Okay.
Are you offended that we did not? Is that a part of why you don't like being around men's space?
I'm not offended by it.
Did you notice it?
I did notice it, but it's just a part of who I am. So I'm used to sharing my pronouns because I'm intentional about honoring anyone in the space who may not share my same pronouns. And so I just like to create that safe space for those who may not. But if everyone has the same pronouns, that's also okay. But I'm not offended by it now.
Okay. I was curious about why you avoid men's space. I was wondering, do you feel like
that's a larger conversation.
Okay. We'll come back.
But the goal,
Come on, we'll come back.
but the goal, I would love to write and produce a play, and that'll take roughly around 10 months to do. And I think that so many of the experiences that I've had and just stories that have been shared, I'm always wondering and thinking, okay, where is the evidence that you existed? Where is the evidence that that it really happened? Because a lot of those stories go undocumented, they go unreported, and and so I would love to write a play. I want to write it, I want to produce it in its entirety in 10 months. And I want to sell you all a ticket.
Okay.
Well, so that is what I'm looking to do in 10 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love it.
No, I'll go. I gave this some thought, and so my goal is very personal. I'm 53 years old.
I know, right?
And yeah,
I was trying to do the Kevin Hart thing.
in a few weeks, I'm going to be sending my youngest son off to Howard University. And so I've been thinking a lot. I'm going to be empty nesting. And I feel like I have to now design or plan the next chapter of my life. I'm a little anxious about it because I've seen a lot of peers go through this stage, and a lot of unwanted things or bad things or things that I wouldn't want to happen to me sort of happen. You know, people end up divorcing if they're in a relationship.
You still married?
I am. Okay. In some cases, they lose contact with their kids. You know, I don't foresee that because I have a close relationship. But anyway, my role as a father gave me anchor. It gave me sort of grounded me. Yeah. And so for now, 25 years later, I'm entering a new phase. And when I say anchor, just to be a little bit more vulnerable, you know, I was out in them streets, right? You know, I was all over, you know.
Why are you pointing to me?
No, I'm good.
You know.
I ain't pointing at you. No, I'm just saying. I was thinking about, I was often unraveled. You know, no, seriously, as a young man, you know, and for me, family really helped me get focused. Yeah. The day to day, right? And so now it's like, all of a sudden that's gone. Say, okay, what do I do with that time?
Yeah. You would say all that time your identity as a man was more as a father than your professional work?
I would say over the last 25 years. My oldest son is 25. Yeah. I had a lot of positive things happen to me professionally, and I worked hard. That's a whole nother conversation we can have about how, you know, we work. But it kept me disciplined. Becoming a father did more to sort of help me discipline myself. I mean, when I say discipline, like even how much I drink, right? How often I'm going out, how I create time for my wife. And so now it's just like, and again, so now it's like, okay, what's next? So developing a goal would be to be really intentional in this 10-month period of like writing that charter for the next phase of my life. Right? That's what I've been thinking about.
You already skipped midlife crisis phase. Black man, we don't live that long, so 53 is,
no.
you know.
I'm 71.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I it depends on how you define midlife crisis. I've had crises, right? But then again, the thing that always grounded me was that responsibility. That's right. And again, this is something we can discuss later in terms of like my history with parents, and you know, I was a foster child, adopted, and you know, so I had all types of stuff going on. But again, 25 years of purpose. It was like, okay, I got to be right for them. Yeah, that's right. And not just right professionally, but I got to be right. Personally, right? So again, I want to just be intentional, because I feel like if I don't, if I'm not intentional about how I spend my time, about sort of having this new charter, if you will, or a revised one, or updated one, you know, there's risk to that, particularly as Black men, right? You know. So anyway, I want to be held accountable for being intentional about delivering that plan, and then ultimately adhering to that plan.
Love it. That's good. Anybody else got kids? Just curious.
Grandkids, great-grandkids.
Great-grandkids.
This makes me excited because we're all in so many different chapters in our life. So just as, like, you just motivated me, just from what you just spoke about, in regards to you just being in the foster care system, because I was too. And I'm 32 right now, and every day I look back, like my whole story could have been so much different. But I was adopted by an amazing family that my journey took a different route. And we'll get more into it within these next 10 months, but this conversation is just really making me excited.
Did you meet a dope social worker along the way that made you want to do that?
No, it was my family. My mom, she was a Chicago public school teacher, and her dedication in the school system really just pushed me to just be who I am and go where I am today.
She's still alive?
No, she passed away 2 years ago.
What's her name?
Her name was Burdell. That was my girl. It was my best friend. But you know what? That was a whole different other journey. And I'm pretty sure we'll probably get into it within these next 10 months.
Nice. Brother Jordan.
And so for me, I was just thinking about it. One thing I've wanted to do, but I haven't, is wanted to start a podcast. And in particular, because I've thought about it, I've sat in spaces, I've seen the same people over and over again getting spotlighted and highlighted, right? About what they do. But we often don't hear the stories of individuals that are doing remarkable work. They just need an avenue and platform to do it. And so, you know, how's it leveraging my voice to, you know, provide it for the individuals in North Lawndale, or starting an organization, or just has a really dope idea and wants to start a play, but just needs a space to say it. And how do we amplify those voices, you know? Because I felt like I've had an interesting journey. I'll be 42 in December, where I've been able to bring different people in. And so, you know, I've always thought about it. I'm a heavy thinker. I think about it a lot. And this is like, well, I think now, we talked about this earlier, how do we lend the space to Black voices, to other people that need that space to do so, but just don't have a platform too. And so, you know, it's been weighing on me a little bit more, even as I was just sitting here, more about, you know, the time sometimes to do it now. I had a mentor told me, actually, when I briefly worked Chicago Community Trust, said, there's no better time to do anything but now. And so, I don't know why it spoke to me now, but that's the thing that I want to really focus in on.
Okay. Love it. I love when people want to do podcasts to showcase other people's voices and not their own voice. Right. So
I gotta go.
Yeah.
And that's community law.
Okay.
This Juneteenth, as I was receiving a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award from the President. Jonathan Jackson gave it to me. And I'm sitting there thinking, Lifetime Achievement, I thought at least I had another 4 months. You know what I mean? But the kick is this. Juneteenth, all the shooting and the killing, where 95% of it was African Americans by other African Americans. Everyone out here from the different, because I've been in a lot of circles like this here, everyone say they got to stop, but they all come to the same conclusion. They don't know what to do. I know it worked because we did it in the 90s.
So what is
when
it?
we did, and that is
law.
everyone. Community law is zero tolerance for senseless violence, shootings, and killings. Zero tolerance for the abuse and the rape of women and children. Zero tolerance for the abuse and the robbery of elders and seniors.
So you want to have a community agreement where there's
a community agreement
number of people
it's like this.
On to
just say within the circle that we got.
Sure.
If we all agreed to that, it would be a tremendous start. And we got 30 days. So when I come back and I teach you, because you're the doctor, when I come back and I give you my dissertation of how the thing has been, because you've been and read about it in the news, you're going to say, wow, I sat there a month ago and I couldn't figure out the vision.
Yeah. I respect that.
He going to make it plain.
I know, I see it. What's it?
I'm Govalta, host of the podcast 3 Questions With, the public affairs program elevating the voices and visibility of matters most important to the Hispanic Latino community by speaking with community and industry thought leaders on the social determinants of health and democracy. Join us Wednesdays at 7:30 in the evening via Channel 19, streaming on cantv.org and the CanTV Plus app.
As I mentioned earlier, each episode of Brothers Talking, the brothers and I, will dive into a topic that impacts or impedes the success, safety, and security of Black men. This month's topic is Black men and mental wellness. Try Jesus and therapy. While Black Americans experience similar rates of mental illness as other Americans in general, there are contextual differences. For example, Black adults living below the poverty line are more than twice as likely to report serious psychological distress as U.S. adults who enjoy greater financial security, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Further, depressive symptoms among Black people are more disabling, persistent, and treatment-resistant than they are among white people. And Black men are not receiving the help they need for these problems. For example, only 26.4% of Black and Hispanic men ages 18 to 44 who experience daily feelings of anxiety or depression were likely to have used mental health services, compared with 45.4% of non-Hispanic white men with the same feeling. When Black men do seek help and would prefer a same-race provider, it can be difficult finding Black psychologists since they still make up only 4% of the doctoral-level psychology workforce. At the same time, Black men's mental health is more complex than statistics or clinical diagnoses indicate, according to subject matter experts. Because of structural racism and Black men's unique history in this country, their mental health and treatment are intimately tied to factors such as implicit bias on the part of medical providers, high poverty rates, and low access to quality psychological and psychiatric services. Compared with white people, for example, Black people are less likely to receive guideline-consistent care or to be included in the mental health research. They are also more likely to use emergency rooms or primary care for mental health problems because they have not received appropriate preventative services. Given such factors, it is not surprising that many Black men also harbor feelings of mistrust toward medical and mental health systems. For instance, in a study reported by Behavioral Medicine found that everyday and perceived racism, along with internalized masculinity norms, influence Black men's reluctance to seek medical help. Brothers, let's talk about it. By a show of hands, how many of us in the room are currently seeing or have seen a therapist?
And do that include your wife?
That does not include your wife. A licensed professional, unless your wife is a licensed professional therapist.
No,
that
just that she's been
wife.
with me that long. You know.
She know you good. So
Right.
is that 3, 4 y'all? Mm-hmm. Okay. When you decided to go to therapy, what was it? What made you, despite the stats, despite the resistance, despite the masculinity, reluctance, what made you get to a point at one point where you was like, I need to talk to somebody?
For me, it wasn't really a choice. When I was I want to say 8th grade, maybe a freshman in high school, when my parents were going through a divorce, my mom automatically sent us.
Okay. How old were you? You remember?
I don't know, however old an 8th grader is.
Oh, 8th
I
grade.
guess.
13,
14.
Okay, yeah. So that's when we first got introduced to therapy.
Were you like pushing it, or did you like, okay, I'll try it?
No, I mean, my mom dropped us off.
Mm.
And that's what we walked into.
Yeah.
That's what we walked into. And I remember that the therapist it was a white woman, right? And it was a one-on-one session, and my twin sister was in the other room with her own therapist. And I want to say my favorite part about that session was the bag of snacks. Because the therapist was very, how do you feel about that? And we just kind of looked at each other for our time together. And so I was introduced to the concept of therapy at a very early age, and then decided on my own that the more I began working and, kind of starting my own life, that it felt really good to like not curse people out, but to go and, get support in that way. So therapy started rather young for me.
And does y'all prefer a black male or a black person? What is it like for those of you that have seen someone?
I've never seen a black man.
Never even seen
a therapist.
Okay. Nobody's ever seen a black man therapist.
I mean,
like they exist, but like you never. But
Yeah, trying to find a black queer person for therapy is probably one of the most challenging. Probably one of the most challenging things. My husband and I, it took us a while to even find someone when we got married, to do our couples therapy, and we still don't have a male identifying person. We have a female identifying queer person who leads us and supports us in that. But trying to find male identifying is very difficult.
Does it matter? Do you think it makes a difference?
So I'm considered a licensed clinical social worker. And I often I do therapy, and I'm considered gay. I consider myself gay, and I get that's not a plug because now we know each other. So.
Can't be the therapist now.
But what I will say, I get so many phone calls, and I turn down clients now because it's not my primary. It's not my primary source of income. But I turn down so many clients because there aren't any. And I have taken up so many pro bono clients as well because I know it's not a lot of opportunities for people like us in our community. But going back to your original question, one of the things that really started me with therapy was taking care of my mom. My mom suffered from dementia. And I like to consider myself, I have 3 siblings, I like to consider myself the most responsible one. So everything fell on my plate. And I felt like I really had no outlet. So with that, I had friends and everything, but I didn't want to bother them with my problems and everything. Plus, they really didn't know, how to handle what I was saying. So I started going to therapy, and that really helped. And I started using therapy as more of I just need to let everything out my chest, and it helped, and it helped me.
When you weren't, what was happening? Did you notice something?
I was shut down emotionally. I wouldn't want to talk to nobody. I would isolate myself. I became very short-tempered, and it took me getting into it with my sisters that made me realize, like, whoa, y'all are not the problem. Let me start looking at within myself, figure out what's going on, and that's what started my therapy. I'm not in therapy right now, but I feel like in certain aspects of my life, I'll go back, go back off and on. So yeah.
Was it hard being a therapist, receiving therapy? Were you like analyzing the therapy?
For me, it wasn't.
No, that wasn't a good question, Doc.
It wasn't. But what it taught me was to be honest, and to be like, no, that's not how I feel. I tell my therapist all the time, no, that's not how I feel. And it will redirect my thoughts. I'm like, okay, well, how do you feel? And it will help me process my own thoughts. So yeah.
I got a question.
No, you got it.
First off, when I think about therapists, I think about those that study from a book from Sigmund Freud, and then they find out he was a junkie.
Yeah.
That's why I brought about the wife thing. I've been with my wife 41 years. I was blessed to marry her 3 times. from what I came from, where I was a very violent person, where it's going to be my way or no way, to the point she made me grow and better myself by telling me to look, listen, and learn. Instead of me knowing, hey, I'm a grown man, you can't tell me to shut the fuck up. But the more I learned or accepted the fact of look, listening, and learning, I became a better person than myself. That's what I love about barbershop conversation. Individuals in the barbershop, not just the barber, listen to his client's problem. The bartender, listen to his customer's problem to the point he know when he's had or she's had too much to drink. And they black, so they understand the struggle when you say, man, like you said, man, I'm in this space. I wanted this career and I'm throwing down the best that I can, but damn, I'm questioning myself. Where's the male in all this? You feel what I'm saying? This is therapy within itself for us sitting here talking and discussing with one another and then realize that it's therapeutic. When we leave from here, I guarantee you, when I come back in 30 days, we're gonna say, damn, man, that was a hell of a session. We should have waited 2 weeks to come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is very few of those that have the doctors to deal, because black problems ain't the same as white problems. Even if you in that LBGQ space, y'all still got a piece where the whites that's in it don't have the problems that the blacks have that's in it, because a lot of the whites that's in it don't even want blacks to be in it.
No, I think what you're saying is extremely important. I'm very glad you're raising these points. I got a PhD in psychology, read a bunch of old white men, the Freuds, the Skinners, the Watsons, and I had to unlearn some of those things I had learned in school to be able to heal, right? The licenses we get are rooted in a system that is designed to protect itself, right? And at the same time, I do appreciate the barbershop conversations and the connections, but see the limitations of that too. So both, there's a combination somewhere that we got to figure out urgently, because the shortage is real. People call me all the time for therapy. I can't take them, right? I can't refer them, right? So we have to figure out how to create spaces where men can heal, where it's something different than just connection, right? Because we can see each other and be like, I feel you. I know what you're talking about. I've been there before. But then there's something about the difference between a therapeutic space, because it does feel good to be here with y'all. It feels good just to, you know what I'm saying, greet and hug, and like just be in space. But the therapy is designed to take you from here to another level. You set goals. That's why we set goals, right? There's skills, there's tools. And I firmly believe that we as black folk have a different set of tools that we got to lean on than what we learned in school and from the licenses. But we got that though. There are those of us that are studying black African theorists to learn what we did for centuries to get to this place. Like, we ain't new here. We oldest people on the planet. And so there are those of us that have studied psychology from a perspective that is cultural, that is black, that is indigenous. So I'm an advocate of leaning on those tools, but they are tools though. There is a study. And so there's a both and to this for me, right? But we can't just rely on the experts as we have designated, because a lot of them is bullshit. Like, a lot of them don't even know what they're doing. And they teach us to cope and manage with a sick system without actually repairing and intergenerational trauma. This system is not prepared to heal. We got to find those tools on our own. And it can happen in community spaces, but it's got to happen with some study, right? So I'm curious with that question, for those of us in between, like while we got people waiting on waiting lists to get to a therapist, what are some things that y'all have learned to do to maintain balance, to stay afloat, to heal? It could be books you've read, it could be music you listen to, it could be art, it could be playwriting, it could be relationships. Like, what are some of the things that y'all lean on that y'all can encourage, the community of men that might be watching that might not be able to go to a therapist right now, but still is dying on the inside, still struggling, still breaking, still needs to find something to keep them afloat. What are those things for y'all? What are some things that like come to mind when y'all think about what keeps me going, what keeps me motivated, therapy or not, right?
I used to, the word boundaries is thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about boundaries. And my social and civic ethic is very much one of invitation. So whenever somebody says, this is where you can't go, my next question is, so then where can people go with you? If all you have is borders, you are a land unto yourself. And one of the things that in that ethic I had of invitation that took me, I went too far with it, that created some of the challenges I now face mentally, was I was so wide open that anything could come in my life, affecting what I think, who I think I should be listening to, all those sorts of things. And one of the things I've been doing in the last 18 months, since, you know, sort of the starting of the break, I think the pandemic was like a switch for me, because my work felt like it got catapulted to the top of the register. Everybody's looking for DEI, everybody's looking for anti-racism, everybody's looking for this, and I'm fielding you know, all these responses. I'm leading this company. I'm doing all, you know, I was 72 speaking events in a year. I'm just pouring out, and all of it is conflict, 100%, all of it. The only thing I'm doing is engaging people's conflicts. That's it. Mediating their workplace fights, talking about who should or should not be in the room, seeing whose virtual signals are real and which ones are just virtue signals. You know, they faking it. And I didn't have a lot filling my cup. And it was challenging because I was in a space where, for what we're talking about today, like I said, there's not a lot of spaces I can go in my sector and hear or even see, especially black men, really any type of men of color, who, now add this onto it, come from my background. So I grew up in North Lawndale from the west side, and now I'm in my late 30s, and all of that stuff from the years of running away from the gangbangers and car chases and getting shot at and all of that, man, is popping up right now. It's popping up while I got the CEO title. That level of trauma that I would not have called it trauma before, but because it was such a consistent problem mentally, I realized it to be as such. While I'm looking now for a black male therapist, I started just being better at creating boundaries. And one of the challenging boundaries I have, and it sucks to be in the space I'm in, is I have to limit the exposure I have specifically to women. And I'm not talking about personal, intimate. I mean, just like, it can be it's so devoid of conversation about what men are other than what we should be providing, whether that's providing safety in the workplace or stepping aside in leadership or providing in home, where black men need to, you know, produce this for our communities, produce safety for our neighborhood. Like, it's all production. And that right there, that was what broke me. Because I just felt like a thing for some time. And so I've, you know, my tactic has actually been to be very, very invitational in my language, in establishing effective boundaries, but mostly with the idea, this sounds wild, the ideas, thoughts, and such sometimes of women, because I've been so surrounded. I work in an industry that's 76% women. I'm not working in law. I'm not working in finance. I'm not working in these like male-dominated spaces, and so I just had to really challenge. I had to shut off some of my Instagram channels. I don't follow some of those women influencers because it was all just like men to men. I was like, I can't. I just, you know, it just affects me so much. And just creating that boundary and still being able to engage with invitation and joy with women identifying folks, but not have my ears so open that it breaks into those trauma points that I've experienced throughout my life from people of all types of genders, men and women. I mean, it was black men who chased me. It was black men who shot at me. It was black women who beat me. It was black elders who cussed at me. It wasn't always about gender. It was about the hood, or it was about my age. I was young, so shut up. And in my sector, it's very much about gender. And it feels very non-intersectional for that reason. And it feels very class divided, because I'm like, I have a very poor black person's experience that created, and that's not in the conversation. In many of the places where these things are being spoken about, they're not even places that people who come from where I come from would ever even get a job. So boundaries. The simplest thing I did was press mute or unfollow. Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
Turn it off. You turn your phone off sometimes? Just turn it off? Like
You know what? No. No, I don't turn my phone off.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because I was just having that conversation with a friend. I built an app for entrepreneurs, and one of the things that I really had problems with was marketing, because I did not want to be on my phone 24/7. But in order to get this app up and running, I had to be on my phone. I had to be on social media, and that drove me crazy. So I don't even market my application no more, because I noticed how social media was playing with me, and I don't, it's when you mention that, it just rung a bell in my ear. But
yeah, boundaries are important. I also started the conversation with, y'all might say something that gets you canceled, and I think that you might be our first candidate. You create boundaries by shutting off women.
You ain't gonna say it like that. That's not what I'm saying, bro. We are breaking the fourth wall. I didn't say it like that. I need the fourth therapist.
Let's see if Xavier's back next week. We'll be down to 5 panelists next week.
No, I mean, like,
no, I hear what you're saying.
I mean, no. So I started a somatic therapy.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a class. I'm no longer taking a class now, but I was taking a class. It was a 12-week program to learn about somatic therapy for people who have intense experiences of trauma. Because I talk with one of my my employees, and this is the thing I love about the bridges that I get to build, particularly with queer black men, because I think that they can see the connections of how we grow up as men, but also how the black experience is very real too. And it oftentimes connects the dots, and it's kind of been like my salve in my sector.
This is even just this part of the conversation is tough for me. So my experience with therapy was in a moment of crisis as part of my marriage. And it was like, okay, we did that, everything's okay, move on. I feel like as I hear folks like Xavier talk about this, it almost feels like a foreign language. Because I just felt like nobody was taught. I was taught. You don't think about it. You just put your head down and go. And I know you probably experienced that too. You just do, right? And I'm just now at this point where I'm actually opening myself up to the fact that I can heal, use the word healing, and I can make myself better by doing the work. But I think I often feel like I don't know where to begin.
Have you tried things like meditation? You mentioned meditation.
I've read about it. To be blunt, I've read about it. I work out a lot.
Any yoga ever?
Yeah, but it's only in the context of stretching, physical. I'm saying there's something with I struggle with this. So like, give you an example. I think deeply, but sometimes it becomes like an intellectual thing, not a personal one. So like this past year and a half, I met my birth parents, and I've thought about it a lot, but I haven't been able to sort of.
Feel about it?
Yeah, it's almost like when things get really emotional for me, maybe with the exception of like dealing with my own children, right? I just sort of like, if it's me, I just park it. You know when you do these conferences or meetings and say put it in the parking lot. I got a parking lot. I got a garage. What's that say? I got a 12-car garage, 6 cars in a 12-car garage. I got a lot of a lot going on. And it's like, okay, I got to access. I am actually at this point where it's like, okay, this is the planning, like for my next phase. I gotta work on this parking lot because the parking lot got really full when in meeting my birth mother and birth father and their families and understanding my origin story, right? And so I'm just acknowledging that for me, it's like. Yeah, I had an exposure with therapy, but it was a crisis. Fix it, move on. Now it's like, okay, I gotta outside the context of crisis, just see it as part of the healing and just okay, I'm gonna be better. Yeah. And I think for me, it's just like, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? I struggle with that.
Yeah. I mean, no, the way you describe it is the perfect setup for having a therapist help you unpack the garage, right? These are not isolated, like nobody's meant to do any of this alone. But it's so useful to have somebody that can be a container for all of those stories that you can come back to consistently. Yeah. And you can go into the barbershop, right, and tell a story, and then somebody else will tell their story. Yeah. And then it's just chaos. But the ordered structure of a therapist would be really useful for you unpacking some of those sort of emotional things that you've set aside. So for anybody that's in that experience, that's exactly what therapy is for. It ain't because you're crazy, it ain't because, no. It's just that it's just nice to have somebody who could be a container for the stuff that's different from your wife, that's different from your children, right? That not even because of their profession, but because of their commitment to going along a journey with you, they can sort of just, hold your hand for it.
And I always encourage people, if you do not like your therapist, and I tell my clients this all the time, change them. If you don't like me, if you don't like my approach, if you don't like the way I handle, change it. But now if you keep on constantly changing therapists, now you have to look at yourself like, what am I avoiding? But but look at that. Like if you don't like your therapist and this is your first time doing therapy, change your therapist, and that would be okay. That would be okay.
I think sometimes too it's an acknowledgement of, am I ready to receive? Because if you're not ready to receive, I can go therapist 1, 2, 3, and 4.
That's true.
Same type of same type of result, right?
And then you end up back at the bar. Keep the ice cubes out there.
So it's like you're gonna have something just straight, not on the rocks. Yeah. So for me though, because I'm not in therapy right now, and it's a privilege though. Let me speak it firstly. I live literally half block near the water, and I go out and I walk. Yeah. Because water helps centers me. Yeah. There's something about being outside. And I grew up in Hyde Park, and I never really took advantage of it. As I've gotten older though, that quietness is what I need to stay still, because I have so much noise going on. We talked about social media, we talked about emails, all that stuff. I just need to have some moments, I go outside and walk in the morning. I talk to God, for me, God, and other people, prayer. I go biking. Like I did biking the other day, Biking is just so therapeutic in itself. Because you're writing down, you're seeing things, I can hear, because sometimes I just can't hear clear. If I want to hear spiritual, if I just want to hear to say, okay, where's my direction? And so that's been very helpful. I know the pandemic really started it, but then it's, for me, it's just become the thing I have to do. The other thing is, it's something, I gotta go get my haircut every couple of weeks.
Nice, stay fresh, that's right.
But even the act of doing it, I feel like it's a reset for me, Gone to St. Barbara 25 years or more, and it just kind of gets it. It's just that moment. Like I need that moment in time, because
Would you call it self-care?
Yeah, I do a lot of self-care.
Would you consider the barber a self-care, like a ritual of self-care?
Yes, like the barber's a ritual self-care. When I go outside to go walk, when I call my mother a couple times a week, that's self-care for me. Because I'm to Xavier's point, I've made so many deposits in others, I have made so many withdrawals, I don't have enough deposits, and I don't want to run a negative balance either. So I need to start to really deposit more so I can build that up. So when I have to withdraw in those seasons, I'm able to do so. And last thing I'll share is, for me, therapy was, I couldn't do life on my own anymore.
That's right.
Like unfortunately my father passed when I was young. He was 35, I was 7. grandmother had breast cancer. Don't know my dad's family, grew up mostly in East St. Louis. So I was doing a lot of this stuff. Even though I had a great family, it was still feeling like I did a lot on my own because I didn't have a lot of men around me. And so didn't know what therapy was, didn't know what any of that was. I just knew, kind of head down, just knew what I needed, I knew what I could do. Then I knew when I got older and got around people, well, if life was hard, I can go start drinking. You know, if life hard, I can go start, unfortunately, womanizing. You know, and that stuff. I thought about it in a while. I was like, I remember talking to God 17 years ago. I said, God, there's something more than this. You know, there has to be. I wasn't built for this. You know, even though there was success, I just wasn't. That's just not in my DNA. So you know, therapy was like that roadmap that I had to kind of almost unbreak some of those cycles and some of those patterns, and then it says, all right, here are the tools. So you know, now when I have a moment, I go outside and walk. Then I can reset. You know, or if I need to, I'll call one of my closest guys, Orlando Lewis. Orlando, here's what's going on, and or you know, go and have sessions. Because I need that, because I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. Even though I had all these other things, didn't know it, and that's. It's interesting to think about it, but that's just the reality a lot of us face. Doesn't matter the spaces or the positions or anything, we just don't know. We're not taught. And so, you know, I had to really unlearn to really then learn to be who I was, then who I am today.
I love it. That's beautiful. This is such a beautiful conversation. I hate to wrap it up here, but we got 10 weeks, so we'll come back to it. As we suspected, this wasn't going to be enough time, but we'll be back next month for another hour in conversation and community. In the meantime, join us on Brothers Talking web exclusive on the cantv.org website. For those of you watching at home or work or from your favorite park bench, thank you for taking this first step of this journey with us. It is our hope that together we can support and encourage one another to give ourselves and each other the space and the grace to be and feel with the freedom we deserve to be and to feel. The physical and emotional well-being of Black men doesn't always get the spotlight it deserves, but together, we're committed to doing our part to change that. Thank you for stepping into this space with an open mind and an open heart, and a commitment to creating space for brothers to talk and share, and learn more about themselves and each other. Until next time, Chicago, I'm Dr. Obari Cartman, and good night.